what's one thing or one set that you did with your swimmers that you think make the difference? And it's one little gem in there that we can all learn from, or I can take into my program and I know it's going to work, like a set or a thing that you did.
I'll give you two things. Okay. I'll give you a resistance set and I'll give you a speed set. Okay. The resistance set would just be simply getting onto the power rack, right? And having that feeling in mind that I talked about, where it's effortless and it's soundless. You're not slapping at the water. And what you do is you'll do a power rack where you'll swim out 15, but you'll try and be as clean as possible. And you do it with a very light weight. Okay, so there's very little resistance up front. It's just, hey, swim really fast but clean with good technique and just effortless. All right, I don't want you scrunching your traps. I don't want you ripping at the water. I just want your hips high. I want you flowing. I want your feet in a little box. Just keep your feet in a box. All right. And just get up and over on it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a plate. Each time I'm going to add a plate. And then I'm going to add a plate. And you're going to hold that same technique. And when it gets to the point where you start to rip and slap and grab, we pull back. Okay. We stop. That's enough. You've got to the point where you've done enough and you haven't yet programmed your body to get to that heaviness, right? And that could take a couple of months, right? You might progress that way up to the point where it gets messy, stop it, and then come back, 3 or 4 days later and do the same thing. So that would be a progression where the ultimate goal is to be as heavy as possible and be as clean as possible. And when I would see Bruno Fratis pull a full rack with very little effort and just clean and very little sound, I knew he was ready to go. That man was going to pop. And this is Bruno. Like, we're not talking about the biggest sprinter. And I've said this to him, and he's probably sick of hearing it, right? He's not Flo Manadou. When he stands on the dais next to Flo's got a good, foot. He's a foot taller than him. So Bruno had to be efficient and he had to be powerful. That's the only way that man could compete and be better. And so we had to work on cleanliness, efficient, or whatever that word is, efficient.
Clean and effortless.
Yes. Yeah, clean and effortless. Yeah. And then we had to be super powerful, of course, right? And you had to get on your catch early and you had to hold water. And a lot of people, what they do is they'll get on their catch and they'll start to let go of the water underneath their body. You got to hold on to that water all the way through the back end of your stroke, and you got to let it get out clean and then come back in clean. And then when you get to a point where you can pull a rack at full speed, at full heaviness, and it looks clean and efficient, man, that's when you're money. And that might take a season. Now, so that was my power. I'll give you my speed set. All right, let's do this. Let's do a set of 50s. The first 50 you're going to break up into 10 meters only. You're going to do 5 rounds of 10 meters for a 50, and you're going to break for 10 seconds. Okay, so you go as fast as you can, 10 meters, stop. Maybe you have to push back a little bit. Maybe what you even do is put cones in the bottom of the pool, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you break it up, and you do a 50 broken into 5 sections of 10-meter sprints with 10 seconds rest. Okay. The second one, you might do break it up into 4 sections. Okay. And you'll do the same thing, basically, maybe a little bit extra rest. So you might go 12 and a halves, 4 rounds of 12 and a halves. All right. Broke the 50 up. And you might go 15 seconds rest, let's say, a little bit longer rest. Third one, same thing. You break it up into thirds. You go 20 seconds rest. And then you go 25, 25. You might go 30 seconds rest. And then you'll go a full 50. And sometimes even by the time you get to that full 50, you kind of burn out. You might be pretty fatigued. This is where I would steal something from you, and I'd put the fins and paddles on, and I'd go clean. I'd go a clean 50 with fins and paddles, where your body's already under stress and duress because you've done these broken swims. Now you're doing a full 50, but now you want it to be clean and efficient. You put the fins and paddles on and try and swim under, world record pace type thing. And so that would be kind of a speed progression set for me that you could do quite often. Maybe even early on in the season, you could do rounds of that.
Would you play with the rest? Say you can't, the athlete at the early season, they obviously can't be at the fastest they are going to be for 10 meters or 15 or 25. But would you play with the rest a little bit? Like if they need more rest to keep the quality, or are you with that set, would you just keep it all like in more in the work mentality?
Yeah, you're right. Like a set like that, you can do early in the season. You might do rounds of it. You do shorter rest. The quality might not be as high as you want. The speed, the top end speed might not be there. You know, you might progress the season where you increase the rest for sure, and maybe you decrease the rounds. So maybe you do 3 rounds of that with short rest early in the season. That can be your endurance. You know, I've said this to a lot of people who understand me and my philosophy on sprinting is that you and I, when we trained, the way that we trained early season is we did endurance swimming, which meant we swam up and down the pool, right? We did lots of yards because that's what everybody did. And so what I said is when I wanted to start coaching is, yes, I understand you need endurance to swim and compete and back up race after race and maybe finish your hundreds and your 200. Yes, you need endurance. I get it. But what I want is speed endurance. I just don't want endurance for the sake of endurance. I don't need aerobic endurance to swim a 50 really fast. I need speed endurance. So what I said to my athletes early in the season is we're going to develop speed endurance. And this is where the set comes in, where you can do rounds of it and you can do it on shorter rest. So it does fatigue you, and maybe you're not swimming with the perfect technique, all right, early on in the season. But as you progress through the season and as the rest cycle opens up, the technique improves, the power improves, the speed improves. And then you get to a point, you know, right at the end of the season where you're pushing stuff and it's like, it just looks beautiful, you know?